Welcome to my discussion of the Standalone GFX Editor for DKC1. In this video, I will outline how every feature works, as well as provide some examples. Upon launching for the very first time, I am presented with this blank screen where I must load a ROM. This program remembers where the specified ROM is and preloads it. So, I only have to load the very first time or if I am changing ROMs. Don't know which file is being edited? Not a problem. The window title contains the name of the file loaded. Still unsure? Open the file above in a text editor to see a window like the one below. This program will generate an alert if closed without saving any changes to the ROM. This is the first screen that pops up on ROM load. Here's a detailed explanation of all the features of this. This is a drop-down of a lot of the addresses of known palettes. There is limited support for entering in values yourself. After selecting a palette, note this address changes. This will be important later. When load is pressed, note that both these areas change. More details on each later. Write writes all palette data to ROM to the address specified. These two buttons will jump to the previous or next palette in the list. F5 and F6 are the hotkeys, respectively, for this. This blue box just generates a preview of the indicated sprite with the indicated palette. This box just indicates the current sprite index. Indices are multiples of 4. Load just loads up that index to look at. P and N work as before but for sprites and have the hotkeys of F3 and F4. Export image just exports the current image as a 256 by 256. Like this. This button opens up a whole new interface to create a regular sprite sheet. After specifying every sprite desired, the opportunity to save two files presents itself. First, a text file can be saved with all the available info. This has the OAM chars, char count, 16 by 16 count, and 8 by 8 count. Second, an image containing every sprite in the list can be saved. Zoom does exactly what might be expected. There are 3 tiers of zoom. ×1 is plain, ×2 is bigger, and ×4 is biggest. Now I will explain this. If I click on one of these, that color of the palette is loaded into memory, with various useful bits of info. For example, the SNES total is calculated, for debugging purposes. Also, good to know is the index in the palette. Index is not 0 based here, because 0 is hidden, because index 0 represents transparent. This is the interface that allows editing of the palette. Changing these values changes in real time what this color is. Clicking Apply only changes this on the program level, not the ROM. In other words, this is just a preview until you click Write. Let's look at some tricks with palette editing. If I hadn't clicked Write yet, I can quickly press F6 then F5 to reload the palette in ROM. I can alternatively just press Load. Suppose I have a palette in which I want to copy every color over. I just navigate to that palette and hit Load. I select the destination palette I would like, I don't hit Load, and finally hit Write. Write just writes the palette to the address in the Address text box. This is an action shot to prove this works. For this section I will use this image. This is because this is static and has no animation. There is a lot to go over here. I'll start by explaining these controls. I put in 1948 into this box. Remember that image indices go up in increments of 4. Load just loads the current index with the associated palette. Write takes all the relevant data and writes it to ROM. These buttons work identically to how the sprite buttons worked on the first page. Again, that's F3 and F4. These all work intuitively and I won't go over them here. Checking this displays the tile borders for the sprite. I already went over these in my Rare Sprites Explained videos, so these won't be covered in detail here. Write here just changes the header. These values should not be changed. This section is really handy for importing GFX from other Rare games. Since all Rare games use the same format, all the sprites are compatible across all Rare games. If I go to pixel arrangement, I see this. This screen gives me a lot of info. Not only do I get the type, but I get the coordinates too. I also get the address of the bit planes of each char. TL stands for top left, BR stands for bottom right, and so on. Apply here changes the coordinates in the header of this tile on the program level, not the ROM. Again, I need to press right to transfer changes to ROM. Relative move moves every tile by the specified amount. These are 1 byte signed values, so E0 is equal to -20. If I select the Tile Editor tab, I can edit each tile of the image. Clicking each one of these displays that tile. By checking Show Grid, I make it so much easier to edit manually. Apply just makes changes on the program level. Preview reflects these changes. For all of these drawing functions, I will switch over to best present these options. I'd like to show off all my drawing options here. First up is pen. If I select a color and draw with that color on the image, as long as I am holding my mouse down, I draw in that spot. Next up is the Draw Line tool. Here, as long as I hold the mouse down, I could draw a line intuitively, much like you might find in MS Paint. This one is Paint Can. This works pretty intuitively. As long as you click a color on the bottom, if you click a color in the image, all of the connected colors change. This option is Replace. As long as I select a color in my palette first, if I click on a color, all of that color in this tile are replaced. I then apply, and I can see it in my preview. The last option is Replace All. If I press Replace All after selecting any color in my palette, if I click any color in the image, that color is replaced in every single tile. So then, on preview it looks like this. To talk about hitboxes, I switch over to another sprite. Hitboxes are closely related to sprites, so I talk about them here. I ignore this part because this is for more advanced users and not in the scope of this video. These are all signed 16-bit values. I will not go over those here. But FFF equates to -1. Hitting enter on any of the 4 text boxes above does write. This writes to ROM at the address given. This is unlike before. There is no undo. This just exports the current hitbox as bytes to a .bin file. Here is an example of how hitbox modding acts in-game. I switch to this sprite to showcase the import function and how it works. This is a pretty niche feature, but maybe you could do something with it. I go here and export. This gives me a properly sized image for input. I then edit that image so that it looks as I want. After I load my modified image, I then recolor it, assigning each color in the image to the closest color in the palette. I finally hit Apply to import my image. I make sure to hit Write after everything to make sure I write to ROM. Let's look at some tricks with sprite editing. After editing, I can click Preview to see what my sprite looks like before writing. As long as I never pressed Write, I can click Load to reset every char of that sprite. This section is a little less polished because I made this for myself, but it still does a lot. I won't explain every button in this section. Back up and experiment. There is an array of default animation scripts that are used. This specifies the index used. This address tells me where in ROM that array exists. This is the palette to use when parsing the animation script. This button does a few things for me. The TLDR is it loads the animation index specified. Here are some things it does. In this box, the address of the script is inserted. This is important later. Every entry in the animation script is parsed and loaded as text into this box. If an index command is less than 0 by 80, the image specified is loaded on the right. Because this program renders every index up front, there is lag. Especially on big ones like index 1. Anything with a first value of 0 by 80 or higher is a command and does something special. Typically, these should not be touched. If I change the highlighted index to the shown and press Apply, or Enter, I get instant feedback. This isn't saved until I write to ROM. I write the script at the address specified above. Let's look at some tricks with animation editing. If I right-click while the highlighted index has a command below 0 by 80, I automatically load the image pointed to by that index. If I right-click an index where the command is 0 by 82, that direct animation address is loaded. Palette editing is useful when I want to change colors. Sprite editing is useful when I want to change the appearance of something. Animation editing is useful when I want to change how a series of images is called. Thank you all so much for watching. Feel free to leave any questions regarding this in the comments section.